All right, today we're going to talk about titanium retainers for the 390 Duke. So this is my 2016 KTM. I was doing a leak down test on it. Figured I'd go ahead and check the valve clearances and at the same time do the titanium retainers. So far this thing's good to go. I've got over 23,000 miles on it, and we got less than 10%. I want to say it's about a 9% leak down, which is great. You can kind of see there it is. I've already done one. I've actually done two. There's another one back there, and I'm working on getting the third one. Now I will tell you, this process can be kind of a pain. There's not a lot of room to work on this, but it's very doable. So I've used the same technique in the past when it comes to my old supermotor. One good thing is that, once you get the piston at the top dead center, here's the valve in, and you can actually push it down, and there's no clearance really. So you don't have to worry about, removing all of this and then suddenly not being able to get your valves back, because it's not going to go anywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm also using this leak down tester to push compressed air into it. By doing that, it actually holds the valves against the seat, just like this. And this allows me to push down the retainer on the springs and then allow the retainers to seat themselves against the valve stems themselves. So removal is pretty easy. You have the 8 bolts, and then the carriage comes off, or cradle, and then you have your 2 cams. Ignore all the gunk on this thing. I'm actually stripping the paint off so that I can powder coat it. So that's going to be a fun project. This is a baffle plate that's inside of there. It has a gasket. I've already got some new material so I can remake the gasket. But here are the retainers. You can see the 2 different size. Titanium. That's the OEM version. There is an advantage in weight. You can feel it. These are retainers. They're conical. You can kind of see it right there, and there's a lip. What happens is as it goes in, it locks itself in place, and then that lip locks itself against the valve stem, and then keeps the whole mechanism together. It is a dual spring setup, as you can see, and then you can see how there's some ledges on here. Outside, obviously, for the outside spring, inside diameters for the inside spring. Kind of the same setup here. I don't think that these were designed specifically for this bike, to be honest, but I think it's just pure coincidental that it happens to work. So there's nothing wrong with that. These have been tested on quite a few bikes already. You can get this on Gray Area KTM and a couple other sites. Important thing to note, this takes a 9.48 millimeter shim. That takes a 10. So you will have to get new shims. So that part's inconvenient. But other than that, not too bad. So let's kind of go over the process here. So this is what I basically used for removing and installing them. I know it seems a little weird because not using the right tools. However, there's not a lot of space to work with. So for removing them, it's not too difficult. You're essentially, and this is what I was doing to protect my old, where is that washer? So to protect the titanium ones, I have a metal washer. It sits right on top here. It's got the inner diameter perfect, essentially. And then that allows me to press on top of this without scuffing up this the top of this retainer at all. For removing them though, I essentially took this. You're essentially going to place this right on top, just like this. And then, let me get this to focus. And then you're gonna push down against the valve and give it a quick motion. And then the retainer should pop out. You'll know because as you do it, you'll feel it rise up higher than it was, or than it did before. And then what I did was I took a magnet and I essentially laid it right at the base, brought it all the way down until it rests against the retainer, and then the shims would come out with it. So I can actually kind of show you like that. And then I had this go down and it held up against both of them, and then it allowed me to bring it up just enough to get my fingers underneath it and then hold the shims and everything else. So you're going to want to make sure that you put rags all throughout here and then all throughout these voids that you're not using at the moment. So one at a time, make sure that you're doing that. And then make sure you don't mess up these journals, because this is what provides basically the bearing space, because the oil provides the dampening against this area. And the cams ride on like a film of fluid, but you don't want to scuff these up. But most important thing is you don't want to lose any shims, or not shims you're going to have to take out, but the retainer, the keepers. That could be a pain. And then you'll have to order something like I am, which doesn't really matter because I'm waiting on powder coat, so I'm okay with that. At the same time, if you wanted to, valve stem seal here, retainer here, or not retainer, sorry, this is like spring base. You could replace your valve stem seal if you wanted to. I don't have any issues with valve stem seal, so maybe the next time if I ever have the retainers off, I'll go ahead and do that. And you'll have to lift up these little perches, these guys. Make sure you get those out of your way. Oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for. And then this goes on top, just like that. And then I'll press that down a little bit later. Easy day. Now, shimming them, that's going to be a bit of a pain because you're going to a completely new setup. So, you know, it'll be trial by error, essentially installing and reinstalling multiple times until you can get it into the correct specifications. You know, but that's going to be a little bit of a different story. Once you kind of look at it, you should be able to do the math, but you know, we'll see. So again, to recap, compressed air holds the valves up and allows you to pull the old ones off. Now installing them, this is essentially what I ended up doing. It's a little bit of a more complicated process, but you know, there's not a lot of space to work with. So ratchet, and then 13 mil socket, and then you can look inside of here. I've got a bunch of claw or terry towel, and then I have this smaller socket. Now you want the inner diameter to be small to where the valve stem will poke out, and then the edge here will help push the keepers into place. So if you look, this actually fits inside of here. The idea is to prevent the keepers from moving around. That socket will essentially just kind of help hold it in place so that the valve stem pops up, and then the keepers hopefully lock in place, because the lip that the keepers lock into is, you know, not exactly at the very top. It's down by probably about a half a centimeter. So you have to be able to push this past the spring pressure to where those lips lock onto the edge. And that's the whole purpose of the socket. Essentially just pop into place like this and then help hold it in place. And then this will actually just sit inside of here. And so this outside edge is for the retainer. This inside diameter is for holding the keepers in place. And then you're essentially going to put it down on top like this. And then you're going to press down on it in order to push it in place. Obviously I've had success doing it twice so far. I was a little bit worried about these back ones. These back ones were kind of a pain to get to. I'm still working on this one. I was working on it last night, and then it got pretty late. Didn't want to run the air compressor for too long, so I'm going to work on trying to get this one here in a little bit. And then this one's going to be the easiest one. I just need to get the other retainer or keeper in, unless I can find it. But I looked for that thing for about an hour, and it's gone. So no idea what happened to it. Fell on the ground, disappeared. So, and then make sure you take tons of photos of your gears when they're in timing. That way you don't have any issues later on. Yeah, that's an important one. So yeah, so these definitely can be installed with the motor in the car or with the motor in the bike. And then you should be pretty much good to go. Yeah, so okay. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and then do this at your own risk, because obviously this is something that is it is definitely a bit of a pain. I think each one is taken about 5 to 10 minutes to do. It's I explain it, but it is kind of it's going to take you multiple attempts to do it just to get these keepers to fall into place. And then you may even push the valve stem down. And if that happens, just pull everything out, pull the valve back up, and then repeat the process over again. So that's pretty much it. Good luck for those that are willing to do it. And yeah, that's all I got.